This is Toledo Symphony Lab, a behind-the-scenes look at the world of classical music from WGTE Public Media and your Toledo Symphony. I'm Brad Cresswell. Joining me today are the Toledo Symphony's president and CEO Zach Vassar, principal second violin and artistic administrator Merwin Sue, and the TSO's marketing director Felicia Canny. Well, today we're talking about Richard Strauss, and we'll talk a little bit about Gustav Holst later on in the program. Our last episode was dedicated to the planets, and this time around we are going to talk about music of Strauss and the tone poem Also Sprach Zarathustra, or Thus Spake Zarathustra is how it's usually translated. And this is coming from a concert. It's happening this weekend, February 2nd and 3rd at 8 o'clock p.m. at the Toledo Museum of Art Peristyle. And it is those two pieces of music. You can find more information at ToledoSymphony.com or call up that box office number 419-246-8000. So we talked a lot about the planets last time, and most people are familiar with the planets, but when we say, Thus Spake Zarathustra, some folks will know what we're talking about, the music we're talking about. Some folks will not. It's pretty safe to assume that they know, like, the very first part of it. And if I play it right now, you can hear that low rumbling, right?
It's an amazing way to begin. Some stereos probably can't even reproduce that, so you just get the trumpets.
Yeah,
right?
But in the theater, imagine how this feels.
In the theater, it's when it just says like MGM on the screen. That's the low note.
Yeah. Okay, so now everybody knows what we're talking about, right? Because it's been heard in so many different movies and different media and what have you. It's almost a classical music cliche at this point. But there's, another 40 minutes or whatever of music that happens after this fanfare. So that's what I want to talk about. This is based on a novel of the same name by the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. And, if I tried to talk about what it was about, I think everybody's ears would glaze over, including mine. So does anybody have anything they want to say about Nietzsche? He was sort of like an anti-moralist in this novel, he wanted to turn everything on its head. And, what more can we say?
It's a very interesting pivot for this season because our first season, the first part of the season, we really concentrated almost entirely on absolute music. We were talking about music which, even if it had descriptive titles like New World, Symphony, things like that, were very much designed to function on their own. And I feel like I should have reached a much greater rhetorical crescendo at this moment than I actually have. But
you had the music right there.
I really
man.
did. I needed to time my sentiments a little bit better.
It's all right. You'll get another chance later.
But from
foreshadowing.
From moving something very... we're going to need to cut this section.
Poor Merwin. No, this is your kazoo moment. Keep going. This is fun to watch.
Yeah, you're the first victim today.
Just imagine how much fun it's listening.
So when you're moving from something as absolute music as Brahms' Second Symphony or Beethoven Emperor Concerto to Also Sprach Zarathustra and the planets, you're taking two incredible pieces of absolute music and replacing them with two incredible pieces of program music. And that's really important for audiences to know because understanding what the composer is trying to depict outside of the music now actually does become fundamental to the listening experience. And that doesn't mean you have to have read the novel, but this sense that there's, you're awaking out of this long, almost 10-year isolation, and this sunrise is what you first hear. That, in a way, it gives more importance to that early rumbling at the beginning. That's 10 years of isolation, and all of a sudden, you're entering the world again.
Yeah.
And I think that adds depth to the listening experience when you understand a few of those moments.
Yeah, and just knowing that the title of that opening movement is Sunrise, right, makes a difference in how you view it, starting from the darkness, and then we have the sun rising, and we're off.
Mm-hmm. There was a programmatic intent here. We originally had a piece called Atmospheres by Ligeti on this program.
Oh, yeah. Which was used, by the way, in the 2001 Space Odyssey film.
So I guess we didn't want to nod to that too much, but that the progression was to be starting with atmospheres, just mists out in space, and then also Sprach, where you have the sunrise, and then you turn the camera outward and you have the planets. So there was this sort of ascension. We just realized it was simply too much music for one concert.
Yeah.
We're pushing 80 minutes as it is with these two pieces. So in fact, we're probably over 80 minutes. So what we end up with is two enormous, very visual, amazing tone poems. And tone poems are very romantic with a capital R. It's really the difference between a Beethoven and Brahms world, which were very romantic as well. But this is, living outside the sense of what music can achieve according to Beethoven and Brahms, and it really living in a story. And that's something that Strauss and Holst and Mahler and all of these wonderful late romantics really were enamored of.
Yeah. Well, talking about the tone poem, Strauss kind of owns the tone poem. He inherited it from Liszt, who more or less invented this idea of creating a little story in music. But Strauss really took that ball and ran with it.
Right.
And is famous for all these tone poems. And I don't know. I mean, this has such a really strong association with 2001: A Space Odyssey, and with this whole mystery of outer space and the undiscovered frontier and all that sort of thing. I'm wondering if that is really in line with what Strauss originally intended.
Well, I mean, if you take it back to why does it make good cinema music, and we've talked a lot about film music. I think there is something otherworldly and searching in these chords. But if you take it then a step back to the Nietzsche. If I remember what I was taught in sophomore year lit courses in college, the also Sprach was supposed to be this sort of ascension to, you have the humanity or the mankind versus the heavenly, right? And Strauss does a really good job of depicting that, because if you get beyond yourself, get outside yourself, then you can achieve this Übermensch, this Superman,
right?
Which is not an Aryan achievement by any means, nothing related to politics at that time, but really just to think about something where you can be a better yourself. So you think about what we always are striving for, to be better than we are now, or to be more perfect than we are now. And I think Strauss does this really interesting thing with the music, where he plays around with this idea of the nature theme, or the perfection is this perfect C major chord, and the mankind is this kind of dirgy B minor chord, but kind of sounds like what mankind feels like.
Yeah.
And the C major chord is what you're really striving for. So as Nietzsche was talking about that conflict, Strauss puts it into a musical term throughout the piece. So you have this major minor conflict, and it comes up in hysterical proportions. There are points where, there's a great fugue in B minor, and then the nature takes over with a huge clash in the orchestra. Organ is just blazing C major. You have these midnight bells throughout the piece. And then you have this weird waltz, which doesn't feel like humanity or nature, but it's just spectacular.
It is one of the things that's very unusual about kind of coming back to the piece is what we remember is this conflict and this kind of, there's a very like Knotty, this naughty philosophical nature to the piece. But
although I kind of like Naughty philosophical.
But
that's the next classics program. That's Kurt Weill.
That's Kurt Weill. But it is, I think, one of the things that's actually a bit surprising about the Nietzsche is that there is this lightheartedness about Zarathustra.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not this kind of, we talked about this dirgy nature, and that's certainly very much part of the piece. But the waltz, the dance, the lightheartedness, there's actually quite a lot of that when Zarathustra's talking to his, I guess, I mean, not the rabble part at the beginning, but there's kind of like a sense of discipleship towards the end of the novel. And it's funny. It's lighthearted. And there's this, and I think, and there is this need to express in dance, and I think that was something that Nietzsche, who was also a composer, I think was certainly not, was not necessarily thinking that the waltz was an inappropriate form.
No, but there was a quote, and I'm going to mess this up and probably be apocryphal here, but I think at some point Nietzsche said that dancing is the highest form of humanity. So there, you can do a lot of bad things, but if you take a moment to dance, then you're getting back to it, or you're getting more toward that Superman. So in a way, that waltz kind of fits.
Absolutely,
I
it
think.
fits.
Otherwise,
Yeah,
it's just Strauss
it
wanting
fits.
to play another Viennese waltz.
This is a little music by Friedrich Nietzsche right here, a piano piece, Klavierstück.
It would have been better in 3.
Maybe it is.
Well, this is broadcast at 3:30.
Yeah. That gives you a little taste. He also wrote a number of songs, really interesting stuff. I think there's 40-some pieces of music in the repertoire. Most, if not all, have actually been recorded. So,
in preparation for this concert, I've listened to none of those. So.
I'm glad you brought that up, because as I was listening to the piece on my drive up, I was curious what the musicians kind of have to go through, because like all of the sections of the orchestra, they're all exposed at one point or another.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get that brass at the beginning, you hear great woodwind parts in the middle, and really, really high strings, I think.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, like, what type of preparation, what do you do as a musician to prepare for a concert like this?
Well, I can't really speak to the woodwind or brass players, unfortunately. I know it's a very difficult program.
You can't speak to them?
No, not at all. There's actually an invisible wall.
they just
Really?
won't
Is
listen.
it like Mozart in the Jungle?
It's called a sound shield.
But
Do you break E strings? I don't know.
well, one of the things that's really interesting is that Strauss takes each of the string sections and further divides them up.
Oh, yeah.
So there's 8 different parts inside the second violin section and 8 different parts inside the first violin section. And there's, much of the piece, they're playing together, but there's much more of a sense of kind of individual solo sections for each player.
That's just his way of making sure that there are enough string players in the
Oh,
orchestra.
so if one lops off, then, there's someone else.
Right. Yeah.
Is that what creates kind of that atmospheric sound, all those string parts?
Those layers, I think, is definitely a big
Yeah.
part of it. You're able to really hit every single overtone in the chords that way.
Yeah.
Which
It's
is
really
just
impressive.
exhilarating to listen to. I mean, it's no surprise that this was really one of the big hi-fi moments in recording technology, was to get this on disc. And, to show off your system was to play Thus Spake Zarathustra.
That title, Also Sprach Zarathustra. I studied
I
German.
like the way
in
you
high
say
school.
it much better than the way I say
Well,
it.
but Sprach, we know, is spoke, or,
Yeah.
and also,
We don't use
though.
spake enough.
Yeah,
in
spake.
Basic
I
conversation.
think it's a cooking ingredient.
Yes,
think
I was
I
going to
put
think,
it-
is it like a spake
Spaken.
wing?
Everything's better with spaking. But also, I always in my head was thinking, it's like, okay, so he also said it. Well, then what else did he say?
Yeah.
But it just means thus,
Yes.
right? Now that we've talked about all these lofty goals and this wonderful music and this expansive string writing and everything, I want to bring everything back down to earth and get back in the gutter where we belong and do a little quiz here.
Thank you for reminding us of our mission here.
Our mission, yes. This is inspired
Thus spake
by
the gutter.
the classical music cliche of that opening fanfare that we heard, which has appeared in countless films, as we know. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, and listeners at home, you can write in, call us, and let us know. I think the first use of it in film was Stanley Kubrick in 2001: A Space Odyssey, 1960s. Maybe there was something earlier. I mean, truth be told, I didn't really dig too deeply to figure that out. But
you're right.
Zach is pulling up his screen there. Maybe he can figure that out for us. But in the meantime, I have a quiz, okay? And here's how it works. You have to identify the movie. And these are all movies that that the Thus Spake Zarathustra fanfare appeared in, right? Makes sense? That
Got it.
fanfare was used in the movie. What I'm going to do is read you a quote from the movie, and you have to identify the film.
We
I am
really
not
need
a
to.
Okay.
We really need to change this away from movies.
Here we
because,
go.
I mean, I haven't seen a non-Disney movie in
I've seen
so
only
long.
kids' movies since
Yeah. Well,
like
then
3 years.
you may get some of
Really?
these, Felicia. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Here's number one. I know I've made some very poor decisions recently. Now, I'm not an actor, so But I can give you my complete assurance that my work will be back to normal. Can you tell me what movie that is from?
No.
Let me finish the quote. I've still got the greatest enthusiasm and confidence in the mission, and I want to help you.
Is this spoken by a computer?
Yes.
Is the computer's name Hal?
Yeah.
All right.
That's right. So that is 2001: A Space Odyssey. Okay, second one. Until mankind is peaceful enough not to have violence on the news, there's no point in taking it out of shows that need it for entertainment value. And
Is this
that's a
Network?
line spoken by a girl,
Okay.
by the way. And this is a movie made in 1995, classic movie, a one-word title. Anybody have a clue as to what that might be?
As
No.
long as violence is...
No clues. You have no clue as to what it is. It's the movie is Clueless. You're looking at me like
Yeah,
like what is
I
it?
actually really liked that movie.
I did too. I don't remember the
I don't
quote.
remember that
Recently.
scene even remotely.
Okay.
Wow.
Maybe I made it up. Okay, here's one. You might get this, Felicia. Fair, I'll tell you what that's hard to say. Fair, I'll tell you what's not fair. Spending a lifetime on a dime store shelf watching every other toy be sold. Well, finally, my waiting is paid off, and no hand-me-down cowboy doll is going to mess it up for me now. What movie is that from?
Well, that's obvious.
Go for it.
Correct?
Go for it. Take
Toy
it.
Story?
Take
Is
it.
Toy Story? I don't know which one.
Toy Story 2.
Two? Oh.
Yeah,
But
because
you
Buzz...
gotta-
Isn't it Toy Story 2001?
Excellent.
Story,
That's
the pace.
that's the only movie we do not own of the series.
Really?
I'm going to skip the
that
next
and Cars,
one.
I guess so.
Here we go. I'm pretty sure that there's a lot more to life than being really, really ridiculously good looking, and I plan on finding out what that is. That's just me talking.
I thought that was... Yeah.
If you want the quote.
The Life of Brad Kress.
Okay, do we know what that is? No? A movie about the fashion industry? A funny movie about the fashion
Zoolander?
industry? Zoolander, yes.
Wow.
Bravo, bravo. There we go.
I think
Now,
that
wait a
at
second.
best
Watch
that deserved
movies or
the
something.
sarcastic.
Zoolander
yay.
has also Spake Zarathustra in the soundtrack?
I could see that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
could see that.
I have to
Yeah.
watch it
Okay,
again.
and here's the final one. This is my favorite. Metamorphosis completed, sir. Spaceball 1 has now become... Mega Made. Anybody know what that's from?
This is Spaceballs.
Spaceballs.
Yeah.
That's right. I've added a timpani to my soundboard.
I like it.
I like
like
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
That's
We
a
can
good
use
one.
It might be my favorite sound effects yet.
it. Okay. Well, I think Zach won because he actually got one of the questions. No, you got one of them, Merlin.
With incredible leading.
It was a tie.
It was.
Wow.
Here, here, please take this obvious hint.
Can we just
Do we
take a
need to
moment
watch
and realize
movies?
what we've just done? I mean, that is what it feels like to make great radio.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for that feeling. I'm glad that you've experienced it. I will live it vicariously through you.
You may have felt C major. I felt B minor.
Yeah, that was a very B minor performance here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, last week we had Janet Amid, the astrologer from here in Toledo, come on to the show and talk all about the planets and Holst and astrology, and we had so much fun. She's going to come back and join us. You know what? I'm playing the wrong track. Here,
That was such a lead up. What happened there?
hang on. Here we go. Can't keep my finger off of that timpani button. Okay. Yeah, here we go.
I don't hear the difference.
We're getting it.
You have new headphones and everything.
You guys have a drum set in your version, right? Here we go. This is it now.
I did not see that coming.
No, I certainly didn't.
There you go.
Is
That's
this
your
the
welcome music.
Janet Amid show?
Ew, I like that. That's really neat.
You get your own walk-up music.
Well, you know what that is? That's how Elvis introduced all of his
Exactly.
shows in Las Vegas.
Really? I didn't
Yeah.
know
I didn't
that.
know that. Huh.
So just another use. And I think we spent like 5-6 minutes on that, didn't we? Yeah. Just
At
trying
least
to.
If you're trying to burn time, you got to go edit that out. That's not fair.
Yeah. No, but we want to get to Janet. Janet Amid, who's a wonderful astrologer who joined us last time. We talked about the planets, and we talked about Gustav Holst and his mother issues. And this time we're talking about Richard Strauss, the composer of the music that we just heard. Well, not really the music that we just heard, but the music that inspired the music that we just heard, which is being heard on this concert. I want to mention again, it's happening this weekend, February 2nd and 3rd, 8 o'clock p.m. at the Peristyle. Holst's The Planets and Richard Strauss's Thus Spake Zarathustra, 419-246-8000 or ToledoSymphony.com. So, Janet, I'm going to let you take it away. You want to talk about Strauss? I know that you also did our charts, but let's save that for a few minutes later.
Well, the interesting thing is, when you'll find this interesting, Brad, is that when I looked at his chart, I saw a little bit of you in his chart.
Ah.
Both have Gemini, which indicates that they both have a sense of humor. And what's interesting is they both have Virgo and Gemini. So you look at the signs that they have that are they're symbiotic. There's a connection there. And so, Strauss had his moon in Virgo. So he obviously had an analytical side to his personality and was very methodical and very detailed. But yet the Gemini part, both ruled by Mercury, is a very communicative, fun, socially out there sign. But again, how he comes across to the world, how he came across to the world, and how he really is are two different things.
I thought you were still talking about me. I was
Well,
so
you're like
excited.
that too. You're like that too. You come across very social, but you really like to isolate.
Yeah.
You kind of like your privacy and you like your isolation. There's so many similarities. He also had stomach issues, and he also had he didn't like change. Was very particular about things like clothes and how in those days they didn't have the sanitary conditions we have now.
Yeah.
But he was very particular about how he looked, how he how he smelled. I mean everything about him was just very. And he was funny about his food, what he ate. He was one of these people that couldn't have his food touching, so everything had to have separation. You're not like that,
Yeah.
but
But
like that.
I'm all for food touching.
But
though.
he couldn't have that. And he was very motivated. He had a lot of motivation, which is you also, Brad. There's a lot of motivation, and you could tell that he wasn't too thrilled about men. I mean, he didn't like hanging around. He loved hanging around with women. He was drawn to being around women.
This is definitely about me. Right?
No, you have male friendships. That's a little different. You've had the same friends you've had for a long time too. Very few, but that you're close to, but still there's a connection. But I do see that you can tell that he liked to write at night. Like he was really good at putting things together at night. He was sort of nocturnal when it came to things he did. And his mind was racing. I wondered if he had a little bit, this is not you, Brad, a little bit of mental illness going on there because
Thank you for the heads up.
I had to throw that in but you could tell that he seemed to perseverate in his mind over and over again. There was quite a bit of repetition going on, and he just didn't let go of things.
I feel like when you present our charts that we should also be paired with a famous composer. I would really like this.
Well, when I looked at his chart and I was looking at everybody, I said, God, he and Brad had similarities
You guys
there.
would have been good friends.
I've always
maybe,
thought
you know?
the same thing about Richard
Yeah.
Strauss.
And I hold him
You
in an
always thought
entirely
what?
new light. now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Merwin, what did you think about him? What were you saying?
Oh, actually, when you pointed out about how Strauss has a very good sense of humor, he
Funny.
does have some of the great lines
Oh, yeah.
about
Oh, yeah.
orchestras. One of his favorite lines is "Don't look at the trombones; it only encourages them."
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. There, see, he had that wonderful.
I didn't know that was a Strauss book.
Oh, yeah, very funny. And he always
Don't encourage the brass.
If he was born in this day and time, he would have probably owned his own business and wrote music and had his own studio and, produced and directed, he would have had like a Motown label or something. I'm just saying, or some kind of label, because you could tell that he loved autonomy and independence in anything he did.
You mentioned his concern over his appearance, and I think about it. I have an image in my head of Strauss wearing a three-piece pinstripe suit with a pocket watch, and which you would famously look at to see if he was getting to the end of the rehearsal and could go out for drinks afterward.
Very picky about how he looked. He had a strong influence with his father as well. Again, another mommy issue here with him. Not you, Brad. So you were close to both.
I'm so confused.
But he had some mother issues. He had a sister. Did he have a sibling like that? Do you know?
I don't know.
Because I think he had some. I thought it was a sister that he had conflicts with. Because I kept picking that up a little bit.
I'll look it up.
Okay, that was really strong. He struggled with friendships when he was younger because he was different. So he struggled with friendships. And as he got older, he seemed to draw people into his inner circle a little bit more. But his creativity was astounding and his motivation was great. But he was similar to that of, was it Van Gogh or Picasso who had to write or paint at a certain time of the light or like 4 o'clock in the morning. But I think it was Picasso. But similar to that, he could write at certain times and compose at certain times of the day or night because he was obsessive about certain things.
He was also an extremely busy man. You talked about how in this time period he might be a director.
Couldn't sit still.
Yeah, he was a great conductor, possibly at certain points of his career more well known for his conducting than his composing. Though he was, so I think that there would certainly be a lot of times of the day where he simply couldn't compose. There were certain times of the year that he almost never composed.
He couldn't sit still. You can tell because Geminis are one of the signs of the zodiac that are very mobile. Every sign has its thing. Gemini it's a mobile sign. They can't sit still. You'll find most Geminis are pilots. They're composers. They're truck drivers. They're always moving around. And he had a lot of, energetic influence going on with him. But it's interesting. He was a really unique man. I actually saw him in my head a little bit, and I kept when I was looking at this, I said, wow, he had an interesting life. And he would have struggled in relationships. Like he would have not had an easy time. And I did not look him up on the internet. I don't have time to look him up. I wanted to, but I didn't get a chance. But he had a hard time with romance too. And his judgment calls were not great. His perception versus how he interacted. When it was on stage conducting or doing anything, composing, he was amazing. But then he had this other side, which we all have that a little bit, our ghost side, I would say. We all have that.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, Brad,
Well, look at the time. We may have to continue this discussion online because we're relegated to 29 minutes on the air. But say what you got to say, Janet. Get it out there. We'll see if we can put it in the broadcast.
Well, I will say, Richard Strauss did have one sister.
That's what I felt. I didn't even look him up, I swear. And it showed in there a sister that he was protective of, but then he clashed with her at the same time. So there was this love-hate relationship going on between the two of them.
One thing we should do is get you a recording of Richard Strauss's Sinfonia Domestica. He actually wrote a tone poem about his domestic life.
Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
So you could actually hear what Strauss thought about his relationships. And Strauss it's a very famous piece because, there's everything from
I would love to hear
sexual
that.
moments to how he woke up in the morning.
I don't know if we can say that on, anyway, go ahead.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
He was kinky.
Oh, he was kinky.
At that point in the score, you
don't
have to
think
look at the
that's-
trombones.
I think the FCC is okay with kinky. Kinky is all right. We can say that. Last time I said Uranus, so we can definitely say kinky this time.
Well, I'll go through everybody. Do you want me to go through everybody's charts real quick? Because we only have
I think
How much
what
time
we'll
do we
do.
have?
Well, I'll have to cut this down a little bit to see if we can make it fit. I hate to do it, but I can probably take some time out of our movie quiz.
Movie quiz.
You think?
we
I love movie
miserably.
quizzes. I'm a fanatic about movies.
We
wish you were here then.
We wish you were here then.
Here.
Oh, no.
I'll ask you one question if I can find it. Here's one movie quiz question. I asked them all questions that had that music in it, that 2001: A Space Odyssey music, right? So these were quotes from movies that had that music in it, right? So here's the one that they could not get, absolutely. Here's a quote. See if you know what movie this is from. A movie from 1995. Until mankind is peaceful enough not to have violence on the news, there's no point in taking it out of shows that need it for entertainment value.
I don't know.
And I said, nobody had a clue.
Was it the one where the guy says, he puts his hand up?
Mad as hell and I can't take it anymore.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I guessed. I thought it was Network.
I
No.
thought it was Network too.
No, it was Clueless.
I would never have known that because I don't think I ever watched that.
Yeah, okay.
See, we Sagittariuses, we stick together.
Yeah, we did. I would have thought Network for sure.
But the year doesn't work. 95 was way too late.
Yeah, it was because that was in the 70s.
All right. I see I'm going to have to dumb down my quizzes from now on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think your Gemini is showing.
Yeah. I guess so. Okay, take it away, Janet.
Well, do you want me to talk about each person's thing?
Yeah, maybe give us the Reader's
Give us-
Digest
yeah.
version.
Yeah, give us the
Well-
Reader's Digest version, then we'll guess who it is.
Well,
Oh,
I don't know if I. Well, I
Now that we've skewered Brad
handsome
Cresswell
and
already.
outgoing
Well,
and funny.
Brad
and-
Cresswell. Aw.
well, being I'll just say this much, Zachary, you're a Sagittarius. And
I guess it's Zach.
Yeah. See, you are funny even when you try. When you don't try.
Oh, no, that was so much better. You're so funny. Even when
just
you
say-
try.
Even when you try.
I hope my wife is not listening because she's going to steal that line from me.
That is one of the best lines ever.
Thank you. I'm just kidding, you know that. Well, being a Sagittarius, you're not a typical Sag because you do have the social, enterprise aspect going on, but you can tell that you have a lot of planets in your money house. So you're very methodical, analytical, detailed about everything you do. You have your sun sign, moon sign in opposition. So there's a lot of, you're an amazing dad. Oh my God, you'd be the best dad ever. And you would be. Your kid is everything to you, children, family, and you're very traditional when it comes to marriage and life and things like that. So you definitely seek that out. You definitely have, for being so young, you have this wonderful gift when it comes to career, but you're going through a big shift that began last October 11, 2017 into this year of your work. So there's going to be some changes because from December 2014 through 17, you went through a big change in your career. So I saw some big transitions similar to that of 07 through 09. So you're now coming into a new direction of your life. It's going to be pretty favorable, but I do see you making some changes this year. There's definitely something in the works for you.
A career change?
Not career, but work-related issues. Like maybe.
Nice knowing you, Zach.
I think this is a
I
temporary.
hope the trustees aren't listening.
No, this is temporary for you. You do kind of obsess a little bit about money. There's a little bit, and that's not a Sagittarius thing. Sagittarians could care less about money, but you are somebody who is concerned a little bit overly so. And but your health is good. I definitely see that knee issues. though. By the way, a little bit with the knees and back.
They do crack.
They do crap.
I do remember cracking knees.
Wow. That's the Reader's Digest version?
That's amazing. I
Wow.
love it.
Can I have like the children's highlights magazine version?
Well,
want
look
the
at
highlights version
Felicia.
Oh gosh.
Felicia,
Yeah.
you're born under the sign of Aries, but you're not a typical Aries because your emotional sign is Cancer. The moon sign rules who we are inside our heart. And so the moon is who we are. And because it's in the sign of Cancer, there's a lot of sensitivity with you. You put a lot of energy into home and foundation, but you can't sit still as well. You can tell you're all over the place. And you went through your Saturn return in 2014 through 17. So you went through a big growing stage in your life. What I was mentioning to Zach about 07 through 09, you went through it in the last 2.5, 3 years. So that was a big transition for you. Your concerns about security are also there a little bit. We all have that, I believe. But it's a little deeper than that. You really want to make changes and you're very intuitive. Love that. You're just very intuitive, very sensitive, and you put a lot of passion into your job. You're good at what you do.
Oh,
You really
thank
are.
you. Did you hear that, Zach?
Merwin, you
worries.
are born under the sign of Aquarius, which is significant with what you do for a living. I mean, music and art. Because people that have your planets are usually in architectural work. They do architectural things. They love to design. Yours comes through your music. You have a sense of optimism on the outside. You come across like an open book, but you're really not. You don't like people in your business. You come across like this social. I'm everybody's best friend, but really you are a private person.
Oh, now we know the truth.
Oh my gosh, you don't like people in your business. You're very private. You're not materialistic, but you do want to do well. You're not concerned about money in the material sense. You just want to be successful, and it's more about that than the material things. You could care less about material. You have creative genius. I'll be honest with you. When I looked at your chart, I said, this man is extraordinary. You're strong. Well, do you believe in past lives? I do. I think in a past life you were a warrior, because that's why you don't like to fight. Right now in this lifetime, you bury your head. You don't want to deal with it. So when somebody confronts you, you have anxiety, but it's all from the inside, not from the outside. You temper it so carefully. And you could see that, but past life thing showed up a lot.
I thought it was just because he was Canadian.
That might be part of it too.
Oh, you beat me to it.
And Brad, we already know you have tummy issues.
Yes, I used to be Richard Strauss.
You have a lot, but your biggest thing, what I noticed in here, you went through your Saturn return in 91 through 94, and then in 2020 through 2023, that's another turning point for you. So it's called a Saturn return. It happens to people between 27 to 30, then 57 to 60. So you're coming into a big shift in your work and your job, but you're good at what you do, but you like your home, man. When you get home, you just want to put your legs up in your chair and just be left alone.
Well, that's, yeah.
Me too.
And mixed food.
Slosh it around.
You'll let your
plate.
food touch, but he wouldn't. Strauss would not. He was there was a sort of, he reminded me of somebody who's OCD. When I looked at that, just a little bit of the OCD. Now, you don't feel
Wait,
like
who are
that.
we talking about?
Strauss.
Oh, okay.
Not you.
Okay.
You're not. No.
See,
you're
I
not
really wish that I was being compared to, like, I don't know, Shimanovsky or somebody like juxtaposed with somebody like that. That would
If
be
I
fun.
had their birth dates, I would do some comparison
would
and
be a
analysis.
that would be
I don't
hilarious.
have that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. But I did see genius with you. And I'm not just saying that to make you feel, but you
That's
have.
what I say all the time. Actually,
You have a genius. You have a very old soul vibration to me. And I looked at this and I went, holy moly. I mean, you have capabilities of doing anything, teaching, directing, composing. You have all that in here.
Now wait a minute. I'm sorry, but I thought we were talking about me.
We already figured out you have stomach issues.
Okay.
Brad
And it's time for a
Merwin's a genius. Felicia and Zach have amazing
And you
career
have
opportunities,
gas.
and I have gas.
At least it's classical. Yeah.
And I also said that, I said that you reminded me of an engineer, which you are, you're a computer engineer, but you reminded me of somebody who, you have all that Gemini in the third house, use a lot of humor, very funny, but like I said, on the outside.
Even when you try.
Yeah, he doesn't like people knowing his business. Very much like you. You guys, you're similar that way. And it's kind of interesting, but very private. You're a good husband, though. If your wife asks me, I'll tell you you're a good husband.
Good.
Although you need to communicate a little bit more with her. When she talks about serious stuff, don't turn it into a joke.
Okay.
Comic
Okay.
relief doesn't always work.
I love it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how this comes out.
Yeah. You're even funny when you're not. Is that what it was?
No.
You're funny even when you try.
Oh. Wow. See, I can't tell a joke.
We're going to have to do this again sometime.
I love it.
Yes, we will.
Seriously.
Well, that is definitely all the time that we have. And thanks to Janet Amid for joining us. Her website, by the way, if you want to learn more, is janetamid.com, right?
Yes.
Toledo Symphony Lab is generously underwritten by a gift from the estate of Barbara Garwood and is a production of WGTE Public Media in collaboration with our sponsor, the Toledo Symphony. You can download episodes of this program as a podcast. That's at wgte.org/lab or on Apple Podcasts. And remember, you can check out all the upcoming events, including that concert this weekend. It's at 8 o'clock, the 2nd and 3rd of February, at the Peristyle. Richard Strauss, also Spake Zarathustra, and Gustav Holst's The Planets. More information at toledosymphony.com or 419-246-8000. My thanks to Zach Vassar, Merwin Sue, and Felicia Canny, and to our special guest, Janet Amid. I'm Brad Cresswell. You've been listening to Toledo Symphony Lab here on FM 91.